Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today, I'm going to be bringing you a preview of Colab by Portal Dragon Games. Now, here on the channel as well, we also have a 3-player gameplay with Board Game Co., whose studio I'm in right now, so you should 100% check out that gameplay to get a sense of how everything flows and operates on the table. In this preview, I'm going to do my very best to give you an overview and an understanding of what exactly this game is, and then also talk on some of the highs and low notes of it, so you can determine if this is going to be the right game for you to add to your collection. That being said, we have to start with the most important part, which of course is going to be the theme. This is going to be a collection of fantasy and nostalgia and honestly really creative, incredible artwork that all comes together in a cacophony of horrific and adorable mad scientist technologies. You're basically coming together as a squadron, a collective of mad scientists, creators and botanists and biotech engineers, and you're using your minions, your little worker placement pieces, to shift and adjust. Pull the lever, bring me the wrench, go ahead and add the potion, it's time to start the brew, or launch the fires. We have to burn this. I don't know, I was going somewhere with it, but I lost track halfway through. You are operating as various, I would say, mad scientists, working within this single entity, this building here with these windows that look into the various rooms that you're operating on, procedures and potions that you're brewing, technology that you're splicing together. And you're doing your very best to utilize your actions to gain resources, to create new tools, to start building a tableau of cards and items and characters and abilities and haunts that all start sequencing and working together so that you can produce the most, effective supervillain items of all. I think that's my own sense of what's going on. The end of the game is going to be victory points. Whoever is the most efficient with how they've produced their items and really utilized the resources on the board is going to be the winner. But for me, this is a really fun, interesting picture into this operating system where multiple mad scientists are kind of getting in each other's way. They're adding and sharing resources. You're able to tell one of the other team's minions to work for you for a turn or two, and that creates this shifting, rotating cacophony on the board that not only rewards you as you play, but also is a really interesting and compelling puzzle to solve. This is going to be primarily, let me see if I can get this right, a worker placement, tableau building, and resource management game, where you can score points during the course of the gameplay, but primarily the most of your points are going to come from the way that you've built your tableau and how different things are sequencing or scoring off of each other. Throughout the course of the game, you're going to be, in a normal turn, taking an action by equipping a die to the top of your little worker. Each one of these dies are going to be a variety of different resources, all of which you need to craft your cards. You're going to be equipping a die and placing it in one of these action zones. When you place one of your workers down, you'll take one of the 2 special or available powers, which are all different around the board, and then you'll decide to take one of your workers back off, returning the die to your, exhausted supply, and again taking the reward or benefit from the place where you both placed and removed one of your workers. That shifts the nature of the board and also shifts the resources that people have available when they're doing their third activation, which is going to be with one of your, honestly, very chunky and very impressive miniatures. They're going to move to these different rooms. These are going to be your mad scientists, and they are utilizing the room space, the room location, any of the dice or resources they have stored up on their own personal board, and whatever dice are linked in workers adjacent to them. They're going to take all of that and be able to craft any number of cards that they have in their hand. They'll also be able to do things like draw up cards and use room special abilities, which allow you to start pulling levers, gathering dice, gaining resources, and really taking advantage of whatever you've moved to. Now, the way that this game operates and shifts from play to play and round to round is going to be very interesting, because as you're picking up and removing, and everyone else is picking up and removing their workers on the board, you have this ebb and flow. You have certain things that are timed, that get left on for a cycle or two. Then you have other ones that you know are going to leave before you go again, and so you're planning your turn constantly around what resources will I have available, what am I banking on someone not moving, and what can I use from my own dashboard to start generating without giving other players too much agency. You're also going to be paying attention to these rooms, because there's only certain cards that can be crafted in every room, and every time you take a build action, you'll be expanding on the spire. You can see here that we already have a few notches built out, because this is after our gameplay experience, but this is going to be only after everyone's built here 2 or 3 times, or after the build action is taken 2 or 3 times, and each of these are more room-specific or room-special abilities, including the option to unlock more card crafting opportunities in the space you're in. So, that's the core nature of the game. The object of the game is going to be utilizing your workers to gain resources and cards, then utilizing your figure to use the dice, resources, cards, and workers that you have available, both yours and your opponent's, to play and build cards. The end of the game is going to trigger after a stack of, or a sequence of 9 cards have been played into anyone's timeline, and then everyone will get one more round. And then you'll calculate victory points based off of how those cards sequence. Now, that's the next thing I want to talk about. These cards create a really interesting element to the game. You have potions, which are primarily going to be multi-use resources. You're going to have to generate potions and then use those potions to trigger things, like scoring victory points, or gaining dice back, or refreshing your market phase. You're going to have monsters, which are primarily, in my experience, going to be things that score based off of their adjacency to other items, and then, or things that have on-activation build abilities. And then, of course, you have treasures, or, I guess, electrical circuits or currents, technology. And these are going to be skills that you use. You'll pull a lever or activate a card, and that'll start sequencing or changing other cards. In our gameplay, we had a tableau that was built out that when you activated one card, it triggered the whole row, cascading and kind of allowing the player to utilize multiple actions in a single turn, all because of some of the technology they built onto their map. Along with that, I know, it might be the most adorable thing I have ever seen. This is going to be HP Lovekins, and we have a ton more of just really, really aesthetically pleasing and nostalgia-filled artwork. The theme and the style and the beauty of this game, the presentation and production quality of even this prototype is mind-blowing. It's out of here. So let's talk about these cards. So when you see these cards, you're going to have a few different opportunities here. First off, these are going to be the resources that you need to build. Now, once again, to pay for those resources, you could use the dice, you could use the resource tokens that you have on your own board stored up, you could use your stockpile of dice, exhausting them instead of using them in a worker later on, and you could use any of your opponent's dice in that region. That'll allow you to craft and add one of these cards to your tableau. Up here is going to be the type of card. You can also see that on the back. You're going to have the victory points that it scores just generally, because every card has its own standard victory point amount. And then you're going to have the title and the ability. HP Lovekins is going to score for each adjacent potion or technology. So it's one of those scoring cards. Little Tinker, which I just left in because it was adorable, is going to score based off of adjacency of potions, technology, and other monsters, but you really have to sequence because it's pairs of 2 other monsters, so it's a little bit of a set collection system here. Teen Remus is going to be a build action or an on-activation action. This turn you may build an additional card of any type, paying its cost. So this is massive because normally this is only going to be your, well, evil villain who's able to take that action, or the mad scientist. My apologies to all evil villains out there. We have the Langolan, +2 score for each adjacent card. Once again, one of these scoring abilities. We have Mabel's Undo. This is going to be a potion ability. You can see in the corner here, this is going to take 2 potions, so you'll need potion tokens on this card, and then you can go ahead and spend those in order to take the action at any point you would like. Discard up to 4 dice, gain 1 star for every 2. If the next 2 card types, 1 for every 1. Then we have the Temporal Field Compressor. This is going to be a constant stable ability. Each time an adjacent card flips a trigger token down, gain 1 star. So this is just in your tableau and starts generating new points. And then finally, the last type of ability you have here is going to be a lever ability, which is going to take one of these tokens onto the card, and this is going to be Henson's Apparatus. Add 1 potion token to each adjacent potion ability, and that's only if you build next to it, you pull the lever cronk, and you take the advantage of the card. You start sequencing and building. So really, throughout the course of the game, you're going to be doing this helter-skelter, this kind of this approach where you're working to figure out the balance of the worker placements, what resources you can get, what's going to be available to you, and you're also really focused on driving endgame, or at least keeping up with endgame when it comes to your tableau building. So if you like worker placement, if you like resource management, and if you like tableau building, this is going to be one you should pay attention to. It has a lot going on for it. I would say it's mid-weight in terms of complexity. There are a lot of iconography and elements happening on the board here, and I know they are still streamlining and working to get some of those cleaned up. This is still a prototype, and so there's still some development happening on the table. They want this to be as, well, heavy and strategically deep as possible, while still being as accessible as it can be when it comes to this type of genre. And right now, everything's clear. It's just there's sometimes a lot of things to focus and follow on. It does take up a little bit of table space, but not a significant amount, especially if you kind of collapse your cards together as you're building out your tableau. I'd say it has the footprint of probably an Everdell, for instance, since those tableaus also can expand to, I believe those are, what, a 4x5 grid, or something along those lines. This is going to be a 12-card grid that you're building out to. This is also going to reward and really incentivize a lot of adaptive thinking, and yet still forward planning. You're going to want to get the resources you have ready. You're going to want to have a good sense of what might shift on the board and be thinking through the cards you can build, always having one or two of them available if you can take the action. But you should also have a backup plan, constantly, because the board is going to always shift. It really does feel like you're working in this kind of mad scientist laboratory, and so if you like to think on your feet while still planning a few different variations of your turn ahead, this is probably going to be a perfect game for you. Some things to be aware of that might or might not make this right for you and your gaming group. At the moment, I think it does play a little bit longer than I would like. I really, really like it at 3 players. There's just enough interaction on the table here, but 4 may not be the strongest player count at the moment, while they're still refining the time and the balance of some of the iconography and potential AP. You could have players who, with the vast amount of options they have, get stuck in a rut of trying to make every single decision. I know there were moments where I was playing fairly slow because I had to decide where to place, where to pick up, and then finally, where to go. And all of those needed to work in a way that progressed my game forward. Now, I stayed competitive. We all did throughout the course of the game. It was a really good experience, but I think it probably ran a little bit longer than I would have preferred. And I know the developer is still working on that. Outside of that, there's really not much to discourage me from recommending this game. The biggest things that I would pay attention to is just going to be the nature of what you've enjoyed. If you've played tableau games before, and if you've played sort of shifting or experimental worker placement games before, you're going to have a lot in here that you can hook your teeth into. And also, if you like the theme, if you like the style of it, there is so much good in here. I spent the entire game oohing and awing, and honestly, I want more of this. I'm going to be paying attention to the campaign page, hoping to see more artwork and more customizations and more characters than what I have here in the prototype, because I love this aesthetic. I don't even know who the artist is. I probably should have checked that beforehand, but it is mind-blowing how cute, adorable, and still fantastical and evil it is in some regards. Overall, Colab is going to be a really solid experience. And like I said, we have a gameplay over on the channel, and so you have a good overview, a good understanding of what this game is now, but make sure you swing over and check us out when we're actually playing the game, so you can get a sense and see how it operates when it's hitting the table. And with that, if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I know myself and the publishers will be paying attention to the comment section and doing our very best to keep up and respond with everyone that leaves a comment. Whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing, get out and play some games, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.